Rich Fiesta, Executive Director of the Alliance. Been here before, know a number of you. How many of you know or participate with the Alliance back in your home state? Canadians, you can't raise your hands. But we're going to try and get so few, yeah, few. Good. Talk about. So, our view is, we were founded by the labor movement to be the retirees organization back in 2001 by the AFL-CIO. Much like a federation for retirees, the way the AFL-CIO is a federation for active members as well. Because there are baby boomers, people born between about 1948 and 1964, we're growing every minute. 10,000 people in this country turn 65 every day. Every day. 10,000 Americans turn 65 every day. It's about one every 7 or 8 seconds. So, another one just went. Someone just had a 65th birthday. So, we're the growing part of the population. The Alliance, we have 1,600 chapters. Most of them retiree chapters of our participating unions. Others, like the Texans are doing, where there's not a lot of density, go out and do an area chapter as well, for example. And then folks who just want to think like us and talk like us, advocate and agitate like us can join too for $10 a year. The machinists, you're one of our key and founding members, so your participation is paid for annually by the IAM. And as Robert just said, George Porpoise, when he was president emeritus of the IAM, was our founding president as well. And as many of you know, George had a long history in seniors issues, going back to his days as a staff member at the IAM as well. So Robert is following in that tradition. These are the states where we have state alliances. There's a Hawaii Alliance for Retired Americans, a Maine Alliance for Retired Americans. And you can find addresses and contact information for them on their website. Right now we're talking to Kentucky and New Jersey and Delaware and Mississippi and Louisiana over the next year or two to see if we can get some activism there. And I know IAM, wherever there's an airport, there's probably an IAM member as well. David Meinel, our Missouri president, is holding up a piece of paper.
It says contacts in Tennessee and Kansas to organize.
For the IAM? No, for us.
Missouri, for the National ARA.
All right. Oh, great.
I'm going to send that back with you.
Terrific. Yay. Terrific. Yes, thank you. Yes. The IAM does have a few members in and around Wichita, don't they? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. You pull up the subject that we've been debating here today.
Uh-huh.
You say you've got lists, names and addresses.
Right.
Of who?
Of the retirees that the participating unions give us. We're only as good as what your union gives us.
What does IAM do? What have you got for IAM?
We have a few 100,000 members list that they have given us, in the past.
And you say we can get them from
No, I never said that. These are union lists. You know how unions guard lists. When we do political mail or whatever, we have to get permission, from the unions to make sure, a piece of mail is okay. What we do like to have, which is easier, this is much different than when we started in 2001, is email addresses, because it doesn't cost us, $1 to send something out. It costs us the staff time to just load it in and push a button. For example, and so much more communication is like when the Alliance started in 2001, there were only about 15%, 1 out of 6 or 7 seniors even had email or access to the internet. Now that's, way over 50%. We've seen a lot more people, retiring who used internet, email in their work life, plus it's become a lot less expensive to use. Computers aren't as expensive and email's much more readily available. So that's kind of the wave of the future. Just in cost is the labor movement's trying to look for every penny and dollar it can, and better communication. And Facebook. How many people are on Facebook? Right. The fastest growing number of Facebook new users are people over 60. It's seniors. The kids, they've gone to other things. They're using things called like Instagram and Kik and things like that, Twitter. But seniors, older people are now using Facebook more. It's easy to get on. I don't have an account, so I'm still old that way. The Alliance has an account. We put up something about Donald Trump and Social Security because he's surrounded by all these privatizers last week on a blog post, and we got 100,000 likes in 2 days, which broke our record. So it's saying to us, people out there interested in our issue are coming to our Facebook page and spreading it around. I'll talk about that. But this is where we are, and we want to grow and someday get all 50 states organized. Obviously, this year is an election year, so we're a little concentrated on other things. As Robert mentioned, we have a good and long IAM relationship. Robert is president. President Martinez is on our executive board, much like President Buffenbarger was before him. Lori Pelletier, anyone from Connecticut? Yeah, IAM member, Connecticut AFL-CIO president. She's on our executive board. We have 2 of our state chapters as presidents. Dave Meinel, back there in the back. And Dave, yeah, nope, you came and got it somehow. Good, you got your pad.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, and Jackie Boschak from Washington State, and Linda Sims is from that local out there as well. What we do what you do. We're grassroots advocacy and action, legislative advocacy, both in the state legislature or sometimes your local county councils here in D.C. Before Congress. We educate, empower, and mobilize and organize just like everyone else. A couple years ago, remember there was this thing called the chain CPI to fix the COLA, basically cut the COLA on Social Security. So we organized a lot of human chains against the chain CPI in 2013, and eventually we won that race. So here we are back to social media. Have a website, retiredamericans.org, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Flickr. I think that has something to do with pictures, and not a camera. We have our Friday email newsletter called the Friday Alert. How many people get that? Yeah, just go onto our website. It's free. We don't have every Friday. It's the equivalent of 2 pages, one side, or two-sided one page of what's up in Washington, what's up with the Alliance around the country, some issues or studies that came out. We'll put in links so you can read more as well. But it's our way of getting a good message quickly across every Friday. And it's right there on our website as well. And we do materials as well. We do an annual congressional voting record that's online that we like to use. We're the only senior group that does a annual voting record like this. That other group of seniors, it starts with an A and ends with a P. They don't endorse candidates. They don't get involved in elections. They don't do voting guides and the like there. So we're sort of the default group that way.
They sell insurance.
They sell
Yeah, they
insurance.
sure do.
Anybody want to take a cruise? We don't sell cruises, so go somewhere else. But then stay with us. And then candidates like to use it. You know, it'll appear in newspapers or in candidate literature. You know, I want 100% voting record with the Alliance for Retired Americans. We just had a primary here in Maryland on the Democratic side, where both sides in the Democratic primary had 100%, and they both used it in their literature, for example. So, we get noticed that way as well. See, you have a copy of it that Ed put in your materials as well. I mentioned the Friday Alert newsletter for every Friday. Most of our materials are translated into Spanish, our fact sheets as well. We like to keep fact sheets on issues like Social Security, Medicare, TPP, kind of keep them to one page so they're easily to be read and reproduced as well. We have in some states some state staff where we or our states have been able to raise these mostly part-timers around the country too, but working with our volunteers running the State Alliance helps a lot, moving the program as well. And we train too, much like you're doing this today. So, since we've been founded, we like to pat ourselves on existence right around the time when George Bush wanted to, and sadly privatized part of Medicare with Part D. The Part D program was basically turning over prescription drugs to insurance and drug companies. It's not like the rest of Medicare, A and B for hospitals and your doctors. You have to go through a private insurance company to get the coverage. We ran bus trips to Canada, came back and had press conferences. They had members of Congress, local leaders, where you can save anywhere from 20 to 90% sometimes on drugs. Thank you, Canadians, for doing something smart, negotiating for drugs. Right after his re-election, one of his top priorities for George W. Bush was to privatize Social Security. I don't know if you remember that back then. Yeah, right after his re-elect. First thing he said in 2004, I'm going to privatize Social Security. So we went after him in 2005 and 6, and it was one of the lead issues that changed a lot of people's minds in the 2006 elections that allowed the Democrats to take back the House and the Senate. The seniors in that 2006 election were the only group that moved from Republican to Democrat versus 2004. So when we have the issues and we can educate, we can win. The Affordable Care Act, which is a mixed blessing, I think as we all know, at least has some good positive things from Medicare in it. If you don't have your own through work or retirement drug coverage, it closes that donut hole where people would spend a lot of money, not get coverage, but they'd still have to pay premiums, thank you George Bush, and then pay full price for the drugs, even though they're paying monthly premiums for coverage they're not getting. So that's closing. All the wellness and screening services under Medicare are now free because of the Affordable Care Act. Things like mammography, diabetes, bone density, prostate screenings. No more co-pays, no more deductibles, thanks to the Affordable Care Act as well. So there are some good things in there, even though we have a lot of issues with a lot of other parts of it, including retiree health care, which is an issue for a couple years down the road with us as well. I mentioned we stopped the chain CPI, doing a lot of rallies around the country. I know they did a great one out in Seattle, on Missouri and other places too. And then last year, how many people think your COLA is too high on Social Security this year? Yeah, because you know what it is? Zero. Right. That's because of a formula. That's one thing that isn't political. So our view is, let's change the formula to make it more reflective of what seniors spend their money on, like health care and food and fuel, for example. So we've been for what's called the Consumer Price Index -E for elderly, rather than it's right now tied to workers' wages, because seniors spend more money on drugs, health care, food, and fuel than the rest of the population. So because there was a zero COLA this year, it affects Medicare premiums, the COLA and Medicare premiums. So because there was zero COLA, new people coming into Medicare would have had to have paid $155 a month for their Medicare premiums, while everybody who was on Medicare would stay at the $105 of what it is. So we in a coalition went to work, and we got the 150 people, 150 down to 120, which would have been the new rate if there had been the COLA, and then everybody else stayed at the 105 rate for this year too. So we saved seniors a few $1 billion in health increases on their premiums this year as well. Yes. If we had the CPI-E, it would have still been a small COLA because gas prices went down, but it would have been 0.75% to 1%, and then we wouldn't have had these Medicare hike issues to go after, for example. Here's just some fun pictures of things we do when we visit there. We're the Missouri people. Yes. Over there.
The guy is on the right-hand side.
That's right.
That's our savior. We would have right to work if it wasn't for his veto.
That's right. It's Governor Jay Nixon of Missouri who's vetoed paycheck deception and right to work. And last year on July 30th, which was the 50th anniversary of Medicare, and we had big celebrations around the country. Some of you may have been in them. He goes jogging every day. So every day he wears a different t-shirt. So we sent him an Alliance t-shirt. So on July 30th, on the 50th anniversary of Medicare, he wore our t-shirt. And then had a press conference where he talked about Medicare and also right to work and the like there. And hopefully we'll get a good replacement for him this November, too, a good successor as well. The one in the middle there is in New York State, where we had a huge rally at Albany, for example. Anybody here from Ohio? It's Congresswoman Fudge from Cleveland up on the left, and her mother is an Alliance member because she's an ASME retiree from Ohio, and her mother's very active with us there as well. So that's kind of how we're organized and how we go about doing our business. We want to obviously grow. IAM is key as we work as you're growing your clubs as well. And we have a bunch of issues once we get organized to talk about. We've changed the debate on Social Security. It's one thing us and the labor movement can take pride of. 2010, 2011, all the so-called smart people were talking about, well, Social Security is going bankrupt, and the only way to save it is we have to cut it. You know, there's like that Vietnam War. We had to burn the village in order to save it, right? So we have to cut Social Security in order to save it. President Obama had this thing called the Bowles-Simpson Commission that talked about cutting Social Security and other programs like that. Part of that was, and it ended up in the Obama budgets for 3 years, was chain CPI, which would have cut the current COLA to even a lower amount than it was, using another formula. Exactly. Nobody in 2010 or 12 talked about, in any of the elections, expanding Social Security. It was just kind of a few of us on the fringe, for example. But in 4 years, actually 6 years if we go back to Simpson-Bowles, now Social Security expansion, both Democratic candidates say the word expand. Social Security should be expanded, for example. President Obama, last week, he gave that economic speech in Elkhart, Indiana, and he says this was a complete reversal of where he was 5-6 years ago. We need Social Security to be more generous, and we need the wealthier Americans to pay more, or scrap the cap kind of thing. And of course, we put that out right away on YouTube and on our social media as well. So now we have the President, Secretary Clinton, Senator Sanders, all in for some sort of expansion. And that this year especially is going to be a great contrast to whatever the Republicans come up with. And in the House, in the Senate, there are a whole bunch of bills on expanding Social Security. Some just will say put CPIE. Some have a more robust, full program. You know, raise the cap, raise benefits, for example. But 42 of the 46 senators voted for an amendment last year by Elizabeth Warren that put the Senate, or at least the Democrats, because all the Republicans voted against it, on record for expanding. And there were 2 senators who were absent, so it's really 44 out of 46. There was a senator from South Dakota and one from Delaware who voted against us. Anybody from those states? We'll get back to that. And then in the House, 143 members have co-sponsored some support for Social Security expansion. This is far, far different than where we were even 4 years ago. The media is picking up on it. 2 months ago, the New York Times came out in a very strong way for Social Security expansion in its editorial page. Today, in the Washington Post, which is not as liberal as you think, apparently the president's word struck them. They came out against Social Security expansion and said that seniors are making too much in retirement. Seriously, yeah, if you go online, go Washington Post today, their editorial. We already have our letter up to them. And the only data they use is from those right-wing front groups that the Koch brothers and Pete Peterson front to cite their data. So this is not your Watergate Washington Post anymore. It's owned now.
Social Security expansion.
Expansion would mean, here's how we see it. And it started with a bill that Senator Harkin from Iowa introduced before he retired. And we have a Hawaiian here? Is the guy from, yeah. And now Senator Schatz has picked up on the bill. I remember we met in January. Yes.
Mr. Hilton?
I think at the ILWU hall.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Senator Schatz from Hawaii has picked up on the Harkin bill, and it does three things. First, it scraps the cap, which is $118,000 over time, over a few years. Then it raises everybody's benefit, so expands the benefit by an average of about $800 a year, so it's about $35, $36 a month. And thirdly, it changes the COLA formula from the current one to the CPIE for the elderly. And Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii has taken that bill up. Senator Sanders has a bill in as well that does similar things, although he doesn't raise the cap. You keep it at 118 and let it float under the formula, and then you start again at 250. So his bill doesn't capture or tax the people between 118 and 250, sort of like a reverse donut hole there. And there are a whole bunch of variations by some other members as well. Senator Elizabeth Warren has a good bill in years where there is no COLA, like this year. Her view was the average CEO pay went up like 4%, 3% last year. So let's give everybody a 3% Social Security raise to match the CEOs, and that would be about $500 on answer. So there are a number of bills in. They're all on our website. Just go to our website and go issue Social Security. We have a good fact sheet on it as well. But we are in a much different place on Social Security in the debate in this country than we were 5-6 years ago in 2010 and 2011. So it's activism by retirees, by unions, by advocates for seniors that have really moved this debate. There's no way 5 years ago any of us would have thought we would be where we are today. And it's going to be in the Democratic platform as well. The other side, you may have heard that Donald Trump went to meet with Paul Ryan about 10 days ago. Well, it's leaked out. There was a story in the Associated Press last week. Somebody who was in the meeting, I guess this is to the conservative right, said, well, they talked about Social Security, and Trump said, I can't be for cutting it on the campaign trail, that's suicide, but told Ryan, who's had all these budgets to cut Social Security in Medicare, said, once I get in office, don't worry, I'm with you. So that's the story that leaked out last week.
Trump.
As well. Pardon? Trump. That's right. I mean, what a country, huh? And tomorrow, Ryan is supposed to unveil what his vision for America, which is going to be the Republican vision they're going to do in legislation. It's going to be the basis of the Republican platform, and it's going to have these kind of elements in it, because that's what he's had in his budgets the last 6 years as well. So this year, we're going to have a real stark contrast on these issues, on retirement issues, which we really haven't had recently.
Rich, I picked on you before on this. You don't mention railroad retirement a lot.
I know. It's almost like a parallel. It's on the COLA formula and all of that. It's the same thing. I know I had relatives on railroad retirement from the great Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, so I know it's important. We do on our website. We're getting better about doing that. It's a much better system.
Underneath the Ryan budget years ago, he wants to take our Tier 2, actually wants to take and put us all the way underneath Social Security and take our Tier 2 away from us, which would cut me $1,800 a month.
A month?
A month.
A month?
A month.
So you don't need $20,000,
No.
right? No, that's, because Paul Ryan says so.
Right.
On a system that is well-funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. On a system that's totally well-funded. So, Social Security is going to be a big issue in this presidential debate this year, because I think the Democrats, it's one thing where Hillary and Bernie agree, and it's going to be a stark contrast to the way the Republicans have been talking about it over the last few years. This is kind of a busy chart, but this is why Social Security is more important, even over the last couple of elections. Unfortunately, as Robert mentioned, there aren't the pensions that people are getting, or pension benefits. So in retirement, Social Security is a bigger part, a bigger slice of the retirement pie as well. This is from the Gallup polling people. It goes all the way back to 2002. And they ask people every year, because you can get it over time, when you retire, how much do you expect to rely on Social Security? Major, minor, not a source at all. The key one where it's major source is the middle line, the light blue line, where it is now at its highest level ever, late last year. That it is increasing as a major source, coming down as a minor source, and then way down as not a source at all. So people's minds, as they're planning for retirement or in retirement, are seeing more and more impact on Social Security. And remember, the average benefit under Social Security is only about $14,000 a year. And 2/3 of people on Social Security rely on that $14,000 average for the majority of their income. And that's how bad the lack of pensions, lack of savings, and we don't have savings because real wages have been down as well. Here's the SHOX bill. It's S 1940. CPIE, raising benefits. Also, the good news about it, it extends the solvency of the trust fund, which is now pretty good until the mid-2030s. It gives it another 15 to 20 years of solvency as well. And of course, scraps the cap as well. TPP. Seniors have a stake and retirees have a stake in TPP. Not just on what it'll do to beyond manufacturing and the economy, driving down wages. Wages are lower, less money going in the Social Security and Medicare systems on the macro part of it, but on specific parts, there is great language that the pharmaceutical industry has gotten into the TPP. And we have a good one-page fact sheet on our website on this as well. Basically, it allows the pharmaceutical industry in these 12 countries to lock in more patent protections on their brand name drugs and this new class of drugs they call biologic. You know, that traditionally drugs are basically chemicals put together. But this new class of biologics, kind of organism type things, is the new thing in a lot of medical treatments. It allows them to lock in their patents longer, and in some countries, very long. Yes, sir?
Does that mean when they do that, they keep the price high?
Yes, in a word, yes. In other words, it allows them to keep them ridiculously, obscenely high for longer periods of time. It also, which means, and it's also medical devices too, not just drugs, you know, like a heart stent or some other thing, a pacemaker, or whatever else is new in a medical device world too. So it's both drugs and medical devices. It would restrict governments that sign this TPP's ability to negotiate as we do. We do it under Medicaid, because you know we can't do it under Medicare, thanks to the Bush law in 2003, for better drugs that have better prices through buying power, bulk power as well there. And it could force Medicaid, again, to pay more. Would like to get Medicare the ability to negotiate, so it could endanger that, and then what Medicaid and the states can currently do, it may stop that. There's part of this thing you may have heard of with TPP called the ISDS, Investor State Dispute System, where corporations can go sue governments, not other corporations, but go sue other governments in this arbitration system, and the arbitrators are basically business lawyers from around, not judges, but business lawyers. And we've already seen that happen under other treaties. Philip Morris has been suing Australia and Uruguay in South America because those two countries are putting more and more restrictive labels or health warning labels on cigarettes and making the restrictions harder. A good public health thing. Philip Morris is in Uruguay, harms our profit. Now pay us $500 million. And that's the kind of thing that the TPP has in as well, not only for drugs, but for other things. It's been used in the environmental area For example, where a company, and actually in Canada, where a local government didn't allow a mine, I think it was limestone, to extend because it was getting into wetlands and protected territory. And some international company said, hey, we can't make money by your doing that. And they're in the middle of one of these disputes right now as well. But that's how much these trading agreements give so much to the corporate interest and take away from the public interest as well.
So, Rich,
Yeah.
so what it essentially does is it subverts a country's sovereignty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's sort of an argument. These Tea Party types, they're all about sovereignty. That's where we get them upset
Yeah.
on this kind of thing as well. Because they're, constitution, sovereignty, and whatever else.
Yeah, we all started with the banks, when banks were allowed to work, to operate across state borders. I remember when banks could only set up shop in a given state. They couldn't
Right.
go, and then, was that under Reagan when they changed the
A
regs?
little earlier, probably, I think that may have been under Nixon.
Yeah.
Remember him? Right? Anyone here from Pennsylvania? No. Pennsylvania, our banking laws were so restrictive, like banks where they could operate, you could only operate in the county where your headquarters was, and then only the counties that touched that county. But, so Philadelphia banks couldn't go to Harrisburg or Pittsburgh or vice versa. That's how, an old style that you got when you got true local banking as well. But now it's, Bank of America used to be in San Francisco, and now it's in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, Wells Fargo was in California.
Or Wells Fargo's, yeah, everywhere too. So, similar things with the TPP. And you can see the cartoon our communications people put there. It's a pharmacist not holding up a gun, but a pill bottle with his hand out to a lady trying to get a prescription, your money or your life. And the life is in the pill bottle, not at the barrel of a gun. The Affordable Care Act, like any other big thing, needs some help. The other side wants to, it's much like the banking situation, wants the ability to sell insurance across state lines, and that means you will go and headquarter a company with really weak insurance laws, really weak enforcement. And, if you get an arbitration or something with them, you have to show up in South Dakota on a Thursday at 4 o'clock, like that. But that's what the other side has been doing. Health savings accounts, which are just ways to shelter money for higher income people as well. So the chairman of the House Budget Committee, a guy named Price from Georgia, I think there are a couple Georgians in here, not our friend, he's the new Paul Ryan on that committee. He would basically deregulate insurance across state lines as well, and allow everybody to opt out of Medicare if they wanted to, which would just collapse the system as well. That's what we're faced against here. So what we're for, allow Medicare to negotiate for drugs like everybody else does, like Canada does, for example, and their prices are a third plus less than here. Delivery system reforms. We want healthcare not to be in paper. We want doctors to know what else you're being treated for as well. Medicare Drug Savings Act by a Florida senator and congressman. Another clever thing the drug companies did in 2003. Before 2003, there was no Medicare drug benefit, right? But there was under Medicaid. If you qualified for Medicaid, you could get reduced drugs through your state. So, what they've got creating this Part D plan is the drug companies got it written into law that they moved all the people from Medicaid, where the states are allowed to negotiate. They moved all those, about 6-7 million people, into Medicare under a program where you can't negotiate for drug prices. So guess what price they're paying now under Medicare? The high prices. That they're no longer there under Medicaid, where the states have some ability to negotiate. So that is hurting the Medicare Trust Fund because they're paying more money than they otherwise would. So Senator Nelson, Congresswoman Castor have a bill to allow those people to have the same treatment that they were before, and that would save the Medicare Trust Fund $120 billion over 10 years, but just one little change in law. And that's not negotiating for everybody else, because there are 45 million people. So we have another 30 million that we can save money on if we had negotiation for everybody as well. So, this is a little dated, but this is the type of thinking that most of the candidates have. And a lot of this is still going to come back one way or the other in the campaign. Ted Cruz raised the retirement age. Means test Social Security. The government would look at what else you're making outside, and if they determine you make too much money, they'd cut your Social Security benefits as well. Cruz and Kasich for that. Privatize personal accounts. Cruz and Kasich were for that. Kasich in Ohio earlier this year said the only way to save Social Security is to cut benefit, and he told a 70-some-year-old lady, he said, and you'll just get over it.
Oh,
He has the, you'll get over it, yeah, standard as well. Both of them were for reducing the COLA, and we've said Trump's been all over the place. In the past, he's called it a Ponzi scheme, it ought to be privatized. He's surrounding himself with key advisors. Chris Christie, who ran on cutting Social Security as one of his central planks, and see how far that got him. Christie is now Trump's right-hand man, for example. Robert talked about Mr. TWA, Icahn, his other right-hand man. Trump had said, you know, he'd make a good Secretary of the Treasury. God help him, for example. That's the type of folks we're talking about here. And again, the other thing they like to say on Social Security and Medicare, well, if you're over 55, don't worry about it, because we'll just privatize for everybody under 55. But they don't tell you all that money that the under 55 people would have gone into the Social Security Trust Fund, so you're undercutting the trust fund by doing these private accounts, for example, as well. So, one more person to worry about. I know we got a couple Texans here. A guy named Kevin Brady, who's chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. He took Ryan's place when Ryan became Speaker. That's the committee in the House that oversees Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. And he gave a speech at a hearing last week, says this is the way to fix Social Security. Raise the retirement age to 70, means test it, and have the lower CPI. It's like everything else we don't want. But this is the guy who's in charge of Social Security, at least in the House.
What exactly do you mean by means test?
Means testing. They'll look at your other income. And if you're making, well, right now, you pay a higher Medicare premium if you make $80,000 or more a year, $85,000. Or you and your wife, or you, if you file jointly, if you make $170,000. Right now, the Medicare premium is $104.90, the base premium. But if you make $85,000 or above, you're paying a higher premium every month. And the Republicans have wanted to lower that 85 down into the 45 to 50,000, which probably a lot of people in this room would be paying more too if you have a good pension or savings system as well. So that's means testing. They look at your other's means, and wherever they draw the line, they'll cut your benefits. Or in the case of Medicare, make you pay a higher premium.
If they did that, the people wouldn't work this long.
Mm-hmm.
Maintaining more than the minimum for
Right.
security. So it's going to be competing instead of anything.
Potentially. But if you're retired, you can't go back, it's just your income stream that way. And it takes the idea that everybody pays into Social Security and Medicare equally, and we all share in the benefits that are guaranteed regardless of anything else. It's what's called social insurance, much like workers' comp is social insurance and unemployment insurance is social insurance, or life insurance. If you buy a $100,000 policy, they don't ask how much money you make. They just say, here's the premium. And if you make $50,000, you're paying the same premium as someone. It takes away from the idea of the insurance nature of Social Security and Medicare. And some people say, well, it just makes it into a welfare program, and the public will lose confidence and support in it too, as well. So, I think I'm a little early, but I don't think you mind so much. So if anyone has any, questions or ideas, we're always looking for, stories, story banks of where Social Security or Medicare has helped you. In fact, our two DC sisters here have been two of our great Capitol Hill speakers. Diane Fleming has spoken 2 or 3 times on Capitol Hill on rallies on Medicare and Social Security. Susie Taylor was the one senior last year in the Capitol at the 50th anniversary of Medicare that Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic caucus had. She got to cut the cake as well too. So back in your states or in your communities where you're looking to speak as well, always telling a personal story makes a big difference, because that's where activism really counts. Yes, sir.
To make a couple comments about the prescription drug. I believe Medicare is the largest customer in the prescription drug industry, so it would have the greatest influence in negotiating. And so now at this point, that's why you're seeing these drugs at such astronomical prices, that people cannot afford the drugs they need to take, like that cartoon says. It really is a matter of life or death.
Yeah.
And then second of all, what these big prescription drug companies are doing are actually paying, to get around the patents, they're paying the generic drug companies to not put it out there. Here's what your profits would be. We'll give you the money so they can keep with no competition. That should be illegal. A law should be passed to end that immediately.
Right. It's called pay to not play. That the generic company gets a sweetheart deal from the brand name to do it. That's why there's a drug called tamoxifen, which is used in breast cancer, and that's the greatest difference between U.S. and Canadian prices, because there's a deal in the U.S., not in Canada. So tamoxifen in Canada is 90% cheaper than what it is in the United States. And that's the most extreme, because when we were doing our bus trips, we had women who needed it, and they could get a 3-month supply, which you can bring back legally, literally, for pennies on the dollar, versus what they were paying here. 90% cheaper. That's probably the most outrageous. But there's insulin. Insulin's been on the market since what? The 50s or so? 40s is what we're doing? It's had huge price increases in the last year for no reason at all. It hasn't gotten any more expensive to make it. Unfortunately, more people are diabetic and are using it. But so the companies, have been raising the insulin prices through the roof over the last 12 to 18 months as well. Yeah.
2 points. On that insulin thing, my dog was on insulin for 4 years and I paid the same price.
So go get a prescription from a vet for insulin.
He advised me to go to the drugstore. They just listed the dog's name and. But anyway.
I hope the statute of limitations is passed.
The dog has since passed away.
Yeah.
But anyway, on the means test, you said $80,000. Is that family, household,
No, individual. Right now, that was part of the, first it came in the 03 Act, and then a little more under the Affordable Care Act for Part D. So that came in, another gift from George Bush. And they've kept it the same. It's actually 85. They haven't indexed it with inflation, so more and more people every year are going to be over it rather than indexing it for inflation as well. So it's 85 if you're an individual, 170 if you file jointly. But these premiums can go up to about $350 under the sliding scale instead of 105. Yes, sir.
Do you know anything about this group?
Anything about this group?
They're asking for money.
Democratic Governors Association. This is the organization of the Democratic governors that they raise money to try and help. It's a committee of the Democratic National Committee.
But it's only for Missouri.
But only for Missouri. So it looks like they're trying to help you get a new Democratic governor in Missouri. That's because you're obviously from Missouri. So, I bet they're sending something very different in Washington State because they're electing a governor as well. But
It's another group then?
Well, the Democratic Governors Association is the association of all the Democratic governors that get together and then try and elect more Democratic governors. But it's an arm of the Democratic National Committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's legal, it's not...
Oh, very legal. Yes, very legal. That's not a scam.
Rick,
Yeah.
I'd like to reiterate what you said about the retired machinists automatically have their $10 a year paid for by their union,
Right.
but you don't automatically know that unless you hear about it
Right.
by word of
Oh, and it's not $10 for the unions, it's a cap thing that's
Oh,
probably
sure.
just a,
Yeah, but
pennies,
Jackie Boschak is the
right.
one that told me I'd already been retired for a year before she informed me of that. And it was news to me, but I actually had to call them and verify it with them and ask them to mail me my card.
yeah.
So it's not an automatic thing that you're gonna know, and
Right.
it's not an automatic thing that you're gonna get your membership card.
Right.
So, it, by word of mouth, it just really gotta be.
We can't afford to mail 4.5 million people.
No.
Would be bankrupt. They tried it when the AFL started the alliance in '01 and '02, and it literally was millions of dollars, and it became very obvious that all we
Yeah.
do is be mailing people.
Yeah.
So, and then of course,
Postage is just
postage
that.
plus the cost of the envelope would be $1
Right.
plus is $1 plus a
Right.
person. Plus, as you know, the labor movement and the Great Recession, we haven't bounced back yet. So it's more of a, word to mouth, getting involved in your local machinist club and state alliances. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the other thing, most of us pay in the yearly fee, whether it's $20 or $25 to the national as well as to our state. I mean, I get the card too, but I willingly,
Oh, yeah, an extra contribution.
yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Donald Trump, I don't need to say too much about it, but what I want to say about it is attractive working class people.
Yes.
What are you going to do about it? Because I tell you why. If you don't tell the truth about what I'm trying to do, those working class people are going to come out of the Democratic Party. So, are you going to put out some words about it? Because let me tell you why. Because Reagan, Democrat, thought that Reagan was going to help them.
Right.
Today, you've got Trump Democrats who think they're going to help him, but they're lying.
Right.
They're not helping, they're not going to help him.
That is the biggest issue the political department of the AFL and the labor movement is working on. First, finding out who showed up in these primaries to vote for him. Are they our people? There is some good news in there. I mean, he has a lot more people, or had a lot more people voting in the Republican primaries. But the vast majority of them aren't Democrats who came or switched over. They were Republican voters who didn't vote very often in primaries. They just kind of brought them back in. So that's the good news. Bad news is you've got to look to see who are these swing voters in the swing states, because, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Florida, those are close states. The Democrats have been lucky the last few cycles, but we're only talking 2, 3, 4 percentage points. And that's where, the race is going to be won or lost. Right. The AFL, I know already on its website, has some literature for unions to distribute amongst their members on that. Trump is for right to work. There was a big article about a month or two ago when he built the Trump Tower and Trump something else with his name on it in New York City. They were using illegal Polish immigrants in the wrecking. Sleeping on the floors, not getting paid. Exposure to asbestos, and right down the line.
Do you think he's mad?
Do I think he's mad?
Do you?
In the mental sense, or in the angry sense? I would say maybe yes and yes. Yes, sir.
When you were saying about your drugs you were talking about, you get 90% cheaper in Canada. Well, with the dollar at 33 cents on the thing,
yeah.
they'll be paying you to take the drug home.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we were doing this in 2002 and 3 when it was almost 1-to-1, but now, the American dollar is much stronger, than it was back then. Well, at least you got a better prime minister.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, although he wasn't our guy. Yeah, we have to watch him on TPP and some things. Although what Justin Trudeau did is one of